Hello and welcome to Pluggin' Along, a stream dedicated to Lotro plugins. Last time on Pluggin' Along, we made some tweaks to the 2017 BuffBars patch, which hopefully make it behave a bit better, and then we released that to lotrointerface.com. Today, we're going to look at making a plugin for Blue Line Minstrels to track their Soliloquy of Spirit buffs on party members. This is something I specifically want because I play a minstrel most of the time, and it's something I wanted while we've been working through Legendary Angmar on Treebeard. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. But in the meantime, let's check out chat. Let's see. Rev is commenting that they're experiencing a lot of a lag when they play on Evernight. They're experiencing lag that causes them to not be able to complete solo quests, even in areas with no players. I was pointing out that here in the Netherlands, when I play on Evernight, I don't have that same experience. Now, of course, I'm probably in a different country, and I definitely have pretty good internet access where I am at. So when I access US servers, I don't have very big lag spikes or latency in general, or at least I feel like I don't. As I was commenting, I'm not an endgame raider, so if something takes a few tenths of a second more for me, I might not even notice that because I'm just minding my own business on landscape and lower level content right now. Rev, as it turns out, the Netherlands is not in the US. The Netherlands is in Europe. So when I play on Evernight, I am in Europe, but I am talking to a US-based server. And I think Treebeard is non-denominational, but it is housed in the US. And I've been playing on Treebeard nonstop since it launched in June, July? I don't know, it's been a few months. Rev doesn't believe my experience of no lag. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Different people have different experiences. Anyway, as Little Redhead has helpfully put into chat, I am not an employee at Standing Stone Games. I am just an avid fan of Lotro on both Evernight and on Treebeard. And I really enjoy plugins, both what they can help us do as players and also writing them myself. So that's what the main focus of today is going to be. Now, when I am playing on a minstrel, I really like going all shouty in Redline, but sometimes we are doing group content, especially now where we've hit level 50 on Treebeard. We're doing Legendary Angmar stuff, and some of that does require some healing. And so one of the things, whoops, I think my mouse is misbehaving. Let me get rid of that. One of the things that I have been noticing while I've been healing is that Soliloquy of Spirit, whoops, is a skill that you get in Blue Line when you spec Blue Line. And it is a healing over time buff that you can put on yourself or on anyone in your, any friendly character, I think. That doesn't even have to be in your fellowship or your raid. And it will last for 45 seconds, and it can stack up to 3 times. So we can see that this effect is now visible on my character screen, or my character picture up here. And because I have spec'd all the way to Inner Strength, that also triggers a 30-second bubble for physical and tactical mitigation. Those both seem like really excellent things to have on anyone who's been taking damage. And let's see. Now what's interesting is Inner Strength says Soliloquy of Spirit increases mitigation by 1%, but they do have different durations. So the Soliloquy of Spirit has 45 seconds, Inner Strength only has 30 seconds. So I thought it would be really neat to have a plugin that spotted when those buffs went out and used that to display which of your fellowship members had which of those buffs. Do they have 0, 1, 2, or 3 of the Soliloquy of Spirit? And do they have 0 or 1 of the Inner Strength? Now, I have been told that the Lua plugin infrastructure for getting target information is not always trustworthy. And I haven't tested this myself, but if you look at the API documentation, I say, not switching over to the other scene. If you look at the API documentation, you'll see that the local player object they can get has a get party. And this get party, I'm wondering if how much of the buffs that are on your party mates can be seen in here. And if they can't, can we just use the chat log that says you sent it out and just start our own internal 45-second timer instead? Now, one thing, oh, I don't actually have a party mate here or fellowship. I'm going to go ahead and invite a kinmate over so that we can go ahead and see. Let's see. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind coming to Bree, come over to the three-boar statue. Soliloquy Marcus. Oh, okay. She's going to... Let's see. Oh, let's see. There is more chat. Yeah, the API, Rev asks, is the API public? Yes, this API documentation, I have downloaded to my local machine, as we can see in the URL. But this is available at Lotro interface. You can download the zip file yourself, or you can use the Lotro interface wiki and look at it there. Personally, I prefer how it looks in the downloadable format a little bit more, but we could go to the same place, Turbine Gameplay, and then we could come into Party, and we can see it's a very similar list of information. But I like the views here that include not only the functions that Party gives, but also the parent classes, so player and actor. We can see that those are available here. So that consolidated view, you might be able to get it in the wiki form, but it's just there inherently, and I'm really used to that right now. Okay, so with the built-in game frames for the party, let's see, fellowship. There are some options, and one of them is only show. Show deepest in a separate row. Dispel. Maybe it's this. Yeah, there we go. Fellowship only show dispellable effects. This is something that I have turned on in general because the icons can really stack up under your fellows. All right, so we can see she has Gift of the Hammerhand, Temporary Morale. Oh, that's cool. We can see those icons are stacking up there. So if the player information can give us this information, awesome. If it has similar issues to the targeting, current target, let's see. So local player get, let's see, target. The get target, which just returns an entity. If it has the same issues as that, we won't be able to use it. We'll just have to track it ourselves. But that's the first thing, is I haven't played around with party information at all. So I thought we'd jump into a plugin and just start poking at the API and see what things are available to us. So my goal in all of this is maybe to extend the MinstrelBuffs plugin, which already tracks things like your ballads and your anthems. So we can see my ballad is being tracked here. Also, how much time before it expires is being tracked here. So we can see the time ran out, the ballads disappeared. But if I'm fast enough, I can also get an anthem or two in there. Excellent. So my vision for this is a separate window that lists each player in your fellowship and just little icons underneath there with little timer bars that show how long they have left before they expire. That's kind of the direction my brain is going right now for this plugin. All right, that being said, let's go ahead and open up a text editor of our choice and come on in to Documents, Lord of the Rings Online, and Plugins. Now, the only one I have in Plugins right now is MinstrelBuffs. That's fine. Oops. And in MinstrelBuffs, let's take a look at the main function. A lot of plugins will come with a main.lua file, and that gives you an idea of how things are organized. So one of the things that we've seen in this file on previous streams is that the creation of the main window seems to be happening in main, and that's fine. It's definitely a choice. There could also have been a MinstrelBuff window.lua that this pushes those things off to. So we have a show window, we have a constructor, we have a helper function, write buffs to chat. Let's go ahead and collapse some of these down. Hide window, excellent. UI locked, show options, all these possible things to do with the window. Cool. And yeah, just keep on collapsing. Is valid palette effect some helper functions in here? Maybe don't need to live here, but reorganizing all this is not on my to-do list. Just sort of inserting a parallel system that we can make use of, that's really more what we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and find the end of the function where we have MinstrelBuffs main equals MinstrelBuff main. So we're instantiating that class that was defined way up there. And we are going to set, we have a MinstrelBuff command. Okay. What are you? Whoops. Okay. So we have MinstrelBuff command. That's where we're processing all of the chat window options if you're just typing /mb. Cool. So if I do /mb off, okay, and if I do /mb on, okay, so we can see where that's coming into chat. And finally, we call show window. Awesome. And show help text, which probably came out of the standard chat. So if I go ahead and create a new tab here. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and just rename this to be standard. And that's kind of a fib because we're going to come in here and activate both standard and error. And so that way when plugins talk, we'll be able to see what they have to say right there. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and relaunch MinstrelBuff. Cool, and we can see the text that it spits out right there is the show help text, probably. So we can see all the commands. Apparently I just don't look at my standard chat when I log in because it's right there. Neat. All right, I'm curious about the options. So if I do a /mb space options, okay, it pulls up the options here. Very cool. Okay, so first things first, let's make a new file, and we're going to call this, I don't know, Soliloquy Tracker or something. Now I'm going to want to go ahead and pull that off so I can spell this correctly. So we're going to call it Soliloquy Tracker window. And we're going to give it the extension .lua. And we have to remember to import it at the top of our main.lua. Oops. I'm going to have to get better at typing soliloquy. Okay, so we have gone ahead and imported that file. There's nothing in that file yet, but we can go ahead and just say shell.writeLine, and we can say that file was loaded. And that'll tell us that everything's hooked up so far. I should stop closing the plugin manager. I'm going to keep using it, unload, reload, and we can see Soliloquy Tracker window loaded. Or Soliloquy, maybe. Okay. So, new file. Now we can start doing things. First thing we might want to do, and because we're just playing around with the API, we don't have to, oh, in fact, let me go ahead and pin some things so they don't just go back and forth and back and forth. All right, so we got the API here, and let's get Sublime Text. Maybe. Do you not believe me? It's there. Okay. Now I just need to drag these things around. Okay, lock that, and then the API, we'll just resize that manually. Okay, so, you know, I'm just concerned that I resized this instead of cropping it. Well, let's see if we can read anything on there. Does that look readable? Looks a little small. All right, well, let me know if that's still readable. In the meantime, let's go ahead and start typing some code. We have the local player. To get that local player, there is something. How do we get that? There is a hole in my memory. Okay, it's not engine. Oftentimes when I'm stuck on a thing, a really simple thing like this, I will just go look and see, oh, how does someone else go get the local player? Or I'll just glance through the API here and double check what's going on. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything that's jogging my memory. That's okay. Let's go ahead and, whoops, go to Documents, plugging along. The plugins that I have shoved out of the way here, let's go ahead and pop one of those open. So, dtracker, local player, excellent. Okay, you can just call, oh, get instance, of course. So there is a static method called getInstance that you can call on turbine.gameplay.localPlayer. That will get you what you're looking for. So if we say local player equals getInstance, in fact, it doesn't even have to be local, but oh, sure, why not? Okay, what can we do with this? Well, we already were seeing get party, okay? Local party equals player get party. And then in get party, we can see that's going to return something that is of type party. Okay, what does that give us? Party gives us a couple of methods. So we can say, in fact, I'm just going to send this straight to the standard output. Whoops. So let's go ahead and just output stuff that we get. So leader is party get leader. Although, is that going to give a name? Oh, it's going to give a player. Okay. And if we have a player, that probably has a name. Get name. Sweet. So we can get leader, get name. All right, what else can we see from party? We could get member count. Count. So that's party get member count. And then test if a given player is a member of this party. I'm not going to mess with that. Is a sys target? No. Okay. Let's just start with that. I thought there'd be more information that I'd care about. So let's go ahead and hide this a little bit. And let's go ahead and unload and then reload the MinstrelBuff. And we can see in chat that the leader of the party is Affidel, that's me. And we can see count is 2. Okay. So one thing that is on my mind is, can we get the members of the fellowship in a specific order? Now, it would be, maybe I've come on the wrong server. Is it possible to add someone else into my fellowship. Hey, Tane, if you're watching, I'm going to go ahead and invite you. Perhaps they're AFK, as the kids call it. Excellent. Hi there, Dwemer. I'm just going to test with you in the fellowship, so if that's okay, thank you. Cool. So if we unload and reload the plugin, we can see in the text, leader is Affodil, and the count is 3 now. So now I'm very curious if we can go ahead and walk through the member list. So if I go ahead and say I can never remember how to write a for statement in Lua. It's a weakness. Lua 5.1 for loop. Yeah, let's do that. Please help me. Reference manual. Unfortunately, every language I play with has just this slightly different syntax. So when I bounce back and forth between PHP and Lua and C#, I just have problems. All right, nice. So we're going to go ahead and iterate through from 1 to the party count, do, and I'm not sure if I need the increment, but the increment's 1. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's optional. Okay, so we're going to go do some statements. So turbine.shell.writeLine, party member, oh, I've written this wrong. I need an I. Party member I, and we're going to go ahead and do that party get member call, and we're going to call get name on that member. That line's gone a little long, so remember you can use white space to separate onto a new line. Okay, so if I unload and reload, we can see party member 1 is Affodil, 2 is Veldspot, and 3 is Dwemer. Now that actually matches. Oh, nice portrait frame, Dwemer. That matches the order that I'm seeing on screen right now. I'm not sure that's a mandatory thing. Oh, my API is on top of that. I'm not sure that's a mandatory thing, but Affodil, Veldspot, and Dwemer is the order that I'm seeing. Cool. So that's a good starting point there. Now, next question is, can I get the list of effects on my party members? So what are we getting from party? We're getting get member, and that's returning a player. And for player, local party, or there's a party member override for that. Excellent. What can we do with that? We can call get effects. Okay, let's do it. So get effects is an effect list. And I'm really curious what's going to come back in that. And sometimes when I'm really curious about something that's going to be a table, I want to just go get a helper function that will just print the contents of that out, whatever it is, a table, a basic thing. Hello, Soft Snake. You are new here. Well, welcome. This is Lua, a scripting programming language built on C, I think, that is used by a number of games, including Lord of the Rings Online. So today we're looking at how to look at party information. I'm using this API documentation that is up on the screen. And what I want to do is, just for reference, I want to go ahead and add this dump function in here so that I can look at what the get effects is going to return. So if I were, well, I am the leader, so local leader equals party get leader. And then not only can I make use of that in this debug statement, I can go ahead and get the effects. Oh, thanks, move on. So if I were to go ahead and turbine.shell.writeLine leader effects, and that's going to be a dump of leader get effects. And with that, we can go ahead and again, we're just printing stuff to the standard output, or error, as the case is right here. We can say, error, trying to call the function. I should probably define that first, huh? We'll just define it up here at the top of the, and shrink it down because we don't need the implementation. Let's try that one more time. Awesome. Okay, we got a not very helpful table dump. So that's just a reference of things it looks like. So we're going to have to actually look at get effects. So that's going to return an effect list. What's an effect list, you might say? It's this. An effect list. Well, we can do the same thing here. So for j equals 1 to local member equals party get member of I, and then we can use that here. And we can use it in, well, let's go ahead and do local effects equals member get effects, and then we can iterate through that. Effects get count do end. Okay, so we'll get rid of that one down there. Soft Snake says, this is the most educational live stream Lotro could have. I have you beat, I'm afraid. On Sunday, we had a Lotro live stream cooking where they redid one of the midsummer honey cakes on stream from scratch. And by the end of the stream, they had baked a cake, and it was delightful. So I think I have to be a close second on her stream. Do check out the VOD. It's great. Okay, so we have a list of effects, and we have the count of it. So now we can iterate through. Local effect equals effects get, and we can go ahead and pass j on through. And now we have an effect. Okay, what is an effect? We're going to see that an effect has a bunch of things, but really I just care about the name right now. So let's go ahead and turbine.shell.writeLine. And we'll go ahead and say effect j is, I will say effect get name, and that'll be great. So let's go ahead and give that a try. And again, we're just right into the console. We don't have a UI for this yet. But when I load this up, holy moly, we can see for Affodil, we have 8 effects from Inspiring Finish, Tier 2, Resonance, Story Pace. So these are getting returned in order, it looks like. No, they're not in order. Maybe they are? No, the subscriber buffs. Okay, so they're not in any particular order, apparently. Because Gift of Gundabad and other Gift of Gundabad and Great Alliance are not last on the list. That's okay. I don't really care what order they come in. But, oh, thanks, Laura. That is such a great clip. So they're not coming in any particular order. That's okay. I really just care, are they the things I'm looking at? Now, the other thing I'm curious about is how far does this go? Can I get a duration? Is that going to be time left? Or, oh, start time, duration. Okay, what's that going to be? That's going to be a number. And start time is going to be a number. Okay, let's look at duration. So we're just going to go ahead and let's break this into a second line and go ahead and do effect get duration. That's still a little long, but it's fine. Well, maybe we'll make a second line here. Okay, so I'm guessing this is number of seconds since something, or number of milliseconds since something, but let's see. All right, I saved, unload, load. Oh, it's all the way down on the bottom. Okay, so my goodness. 3.4 times 10 to the 38th is a bit of a large number. Let's pretend like we think that's an offset from the start time. Subtract the start time from it and see if we get a more manageable number. Nope. Okay, let's give myself an actual thing that doesn't have possibly infinity long. Here, I'll undo the start time. Actually, no, I'll go ahead and effect get start time. Great. We'll go ahead and have them both. So, go ahead and buff myself and load. Okay, so coming back up to Affidel, we can see that Soliloquy of Spirit has 45. I'm really curious, actually, what happens if we load it again. Maybe I should stop outputting it for everyone and just output for me. That will be a little bit easier, a little bit more maintainable. So let's go ahead and move that out here and just do the leader. It's me. Because as of yet, I'm not ready for everyone's effects. I just need to have mine. Okay, so we have Soliloquy of Spirit, 45. We still have it. Okay, so the duration is when you're hovering over and you see... Oh, I'm not saying now, but sometimes you'll... Oh yeah, duration 30. This one's missing it. But you can see inner strength tier 1, duration 30. I think that's probably the number. Awesome. And we can see that inner strength 20, reduce induction times... 30, and that's 20, Soliloquy of Spirit, 45. Great. Now what's going on? Okay. Well, the times being nonsensical, it appears it's just for the buffs that have a duration of all of the time don't expire. Okay, that's fair. Is that just the maximum 64-bit value that we can have? Curious minds want to know. So if we come into the programmer mode on your calculator, we can just go ahead and do, really? Just want to do powers? Okay, so go ahead and take that into programmer mode, and invalid input, yeah, I imagine it is. Well, it doesn't look like it. That's okay. So we have a duration, and we have get start time. That's fine. The duration tells us how far after the start time we can expect it to stop. Okay, that's good. So the start time doesn't really matter so much as how long has it been since the start time. Let's actually do that. So... we want to go ahead and get the current time. In the turbine.engine, there is a get game time. And there's a current local time. Local time is probably what we want. Let's do a quick little check here. I'm going to go ahead and do a recursive search. And we'll just call turbine.engine. And let's see where we're using that. We have a get date, we have a get game time, get game time. Sure. Let's do it. Get game time. So in this window, we can go ahead and say local game time equals turbine.engine.get game time. Vaz says, oh, he's doing party effects. This is going to be good. I am interested in party effects. Now, we don't need it per se, because we can use the chat window to record when Soliloquy of Spirit goes out. But I think this is a fun exploration into a subject I just don't know very much about. So you're getting to see me learn about it in real time. Okay, so if we subtract the current time from the starting time of the effect, let's see if that gives us a reasonable value. Okay. Well, I should probably put something on myself first. Okay, now loading on up. And Soliloquy, that's what we're interested in. Okay, we can see it 4 seconds, sounds reasonable. Let's go ahead and unload again, load it back up. Soliloquy, you can see 14 seconds. That seems reasonable. These seem like reasonable numbers. Okay, I'm convinced that we can work with this. Now, do we need to? So a thing that complicates looking at player effects is that they change a lot. And so do we care about all the effects that are changing and needing to relook at this every time anything changes and we get notified, hey, something changed, and we go look, and are these things still there? We could do that, but short of dying, I don't know of any way for the Soliloquy of effect to disappear. Maybe there's some high-end thing where mobs can debuff us, you know, the equivalent of clearing, what is it? Corruptions. But short of dying, I think these things just stick around. And so if we know it goes out, then we don't necessarily have to pay attention to anything else. We don't have to rescan. I see the TARDIS is moving in my background. Thank you for elevating it. I think someone in our kin is amused by its presence. Excellent. So, yes, TARDIS there. Okay, so what's the other thing we can do? Well, if we go ahead and make a new tab, create new tab, and we go ahead and call this combat. And go ahead and subscribe to combat enemy, event, and player. Then in here, we can see Affidel applied a benefit with Soliloquy of Spirit on Affidel. And now that heal is just going to take off for the next 45 seconds. What's neat of each of those heals is each one can crit. So that's a lot of potential crits. Okay, so if I apply another one, then we should see those heals come in 3 times as often. There we go, 1 to 3. 1 to 3, awesome. Now I don't actually care about the healing, I just care about its presence. So, my current plan is maybe skip the party effects thing. It might be a little overkill, and instead pay attention to who it gets put on, put their name up in a box, don't even care if they're in the party, and then when the box is gone, maybe if they're in the party, there's dedicated boxes. And then maybe go ahead and have a button somewhere, like where you can click the person, just like mini raid, and then click it to reapply. That's getting way ahead of ourselves. Okay, so let's back up and see if we can draw something on the screen and start customizing it. Or do we want to have a chat tracker real fast? Maybe a chat tracker would make sense. That way we have an easy way to interact with the UI. Okay, so as before, when I can't remember exactly what I want to do, I'll sometimes look at another plugin that already does the thing. So here's a chat logger. And we can go ahead and use the chat received function in turbine.chat to do stuff. Okay, well, let's go ahead and, let's just scroll all that down the screen. We don't need that to worry about that right now. So, function, initiate chat logger, awesome. And we'll want to remember to actually call that from somewhere. right now we'll just call it in this file. All right, what does that look like? We can go ahead and say turbine.chat.received equals, and this is going to be an anonymous function with two parameters, the sender and the argument. So what do we care about? Well, that's a good question. Which channel is this? This is almost certainly the, whoops. This is almost certainly the combat player. This is something that I have done. So what I want to do is ignore any channel that's not that. So we can see that the arguments include a chat type. In fact, we saw this the other day when we were looking at TitanBar. The way TitanBar tracks reputation forgot to do this. So if you typed a carefully crafted message into world, then everyone who had that outdated TitanBar, their reputation with that faction would go up or down as your message indicated. Now, a patch for that has been submitted, and hopefully everyone has updated their clients. But this is a thing that's easy enough to overlook, even for a real mainstream plugin like TitanBar. So we only care about certain things. Now, certainly not the standard, but we can come into the chat type and find combat, enemy combat, player combat. Sweet. Now, I'm not sure if there's an obvious way to know about players dying other than the death channel, which is prettied up in-game to be called the combat event channel. I guess death was a little bit too much. Oh, was that underneath? It was underneath, wasn't it? My mistake. There we go. So, yes, there is a combat enemy, combat event, and combat player, but in the Lua side of things, that is player combat, enemy combat, and death. So now it's not just player death. Your hunting decoy or target decoy also shows up there when it explodes. All right, so just to make sense or make sure, turbine.shell.writeLine message received. And the message itself is args.message. Now I'm doing a toString here. I don't remember why I'm doing that toString, but it was probably to solve a problem. So I'll go ahead and bring that in. So we get the message, and let's just spit that out. So if we go ahead and unload and then reload the plugin, then if we get a chat message going, we can see message received, Affidel applied a color benefit with Soliloquy of Spirit on Affidel. Neat. So all of those are coming in. So all thing I could do is just look for text like this. Now, I remember wanting to do something with the text and not care about any color tags that are in it. Now, I don't remember, where was this? This was in the Hunter Deadly Decoy. Okay, so somewhere in here, I did something about that. Okay, so we had a function called getRawText, a helper function. Oh yes, this was recommended possibly by Thurlor, which is to say that a turbine.ui.label will can strip off markup text, and you'll just get the underlying text. Soft Snake, you envy people who play programming languages. To get that knowledge seems Mount Everest to me. Well, certainly it's taken a long time to get to where I am. I don't know if I would say I'm at the top of Mount Everest, though. I may still be climbing up the side. Okay, so we have a label, a UI label that's never going to be visible. We've set markup enabled, and we set the text with markup, and then when we get the text, it does not have. So that's useful. That seems like a thing we're going to want to have. So let me come back to here. Let me go ahead and include that here. I may be refactoring this somewhere to put stuff into better spots, but for now, and we'll go ahead and actually say get raw text args.message. Excellent. So in that case, if we unload and reload our plugin, we can go ahead and see the color is no longer there. We've stripped it off. And so that's important because the color looks a lot like an HTML tag. Angle bracket open, RGB equals something, close, and then the text, and then another one. So if you're saying, does this text equal this other text, that will, by default, say no, because there's no RGB equals. And so I'm only caring about the presence of Soliloquy of Spirit on person. So that's good to know. So look for, whoops, I didn't actually copy. Applied a benefit, there we go. Applied a benefit with Soliloquy of Spirit on that. But of course, we're really looking for applying it on anyone. Now we can do that. In fact, I'm going to close a couple of these windows. They're starting to stack up. In Hunter Decoy, we did a very similar thing where we were looking through chat, looking for specific text. So let's see, deadly decoy, oops, deploy deadly decoy. That sounds like a thing we care about. One of my kidmates is wondering, Dwemer in the party is wondering if it'd be helpful for them to die. I would say not yet. I'm going to focus on just my alive fellowship members for right now. But I'll let you know. Thank you. Okay, so what we can see in this is a capture group. This is a, in the parentheses, this is a thing that we're going to be able to get access to whatever was inside of that. Excellent. That's exactly what we want. So local, this is going to be a, what are we going to call it? Soliloquy applied equals, and we're going to put that in there. But what we actually want is the name of the person it went to. And that's all. Now, it just occurred to me, one of the side topics is I would like to know whether or not the player knows inner strength. Inner strength is what also procs a mitigation on your allies. Inner strength, well, it's not an active, but is it a passive? No. So I'm wondering, is it possible to know whether or not I know this ability via a plugin? I don't have an answer for that because it's not showing up in my active and it's not showing up in my passive skills. So that's a thing to think about as well. How do I tell whether I know that? For right now, I'm not going to worry about it. Worst case, we could just have a little option in... Oh, I just realized my screen was on top of stuff. But yes, here's the search window where I was failing to find it. So I think there is a way to tell whether or not you have something trained, but I don't know how abilities given by trait points work yet. So that's a thing that just popped into my head. That's a to-do item. Okay, but first, apply to benefit with Soliloquy of Spirit on blah. All right, so how do we make use of that? Well, we can use a pattern matching So, for example, we can use string.match. Excellent. Let's go ahead and close that. Let's do a string.match, and that's going to be message, and it's going to be soliloquy applied. And does our reference tell us anything else? Okay. Right, we're going to get a capture. Local player equals player name equals that. What else? And then that will be nil or null if we don't get a match, and it'll be something if we do. Sweet. Let's give that a try. If player name does not equal nil, then let's go ahead and make use of this debug statement. We'll just repurpose it, and we'll say, Soliloquy of Spirit applied to, and we'll go ahead and use the player name. So let's go ahead and test that. Ideally, what we're going to see is I'm going to go ahead and do a core to salvation, and we don't see anything. And I'm going to do a soliloquy. Excellent. Applied to Affidel. I wonder if I can reach anyone else from here. I kind of like my perch, but people don't stand very close to me. Okay, I hear a whisper that there might be someone. So we can see each time that I start that. Oh, there's someone down there. Maybe I can reach them. They got out of sight. So each time we're seeing Soliloquy of Spirit applied to Affidel. Awesome. And we pulled that name out of the chat log. Now, a cautionary warning. In order to do this, you will need to have the French and German variations of that. Oh. I did not see the message. Let's wait for my combat log to stop being so active here. How many more seconds do I have? Okay, looks like it's done. Okay, so if I do Soliloquy of Spirit here, apply to benefit on Feldspot. Okay, why didn't I see it in my? Oh, I saw it now. Excellent. Okay, I see that. Maybe I just thought I was close enough and I wasn't. That can happen. Now, other thing I like to do is if you have chat messages of the thing, go ahead and save them off. There's no reason to be cagey about this. So, by golly, that's hard to find. All right, just a sec. Don't be cagey about it. Go ahead and give the examples, in this case, of it going on someone else and of it going on myself. So if I go ahead and use that, we can go ahead and copy that straight into the code. This tells us what are we trying to match and what did it look like when we wrote the code. Because Standing Stone Games can certainly change how messages come through in chat. So it's a good idea to capture what you're matching against, because if something breaks in a month or a year or 5 years, it'll be much easier to figure out, is it because I wrote the wrong code or I wrote the code right and it has become wrong? So Yeah, capture those things off. Don't just write it. You'll see a lot of pattern matching in plugins, and it can be a little tough to tell what they're trying to do. Capture some messages. Or if you're going to edit an existing plugin, make a patch, go ahead and capture the messages then, because at least you have something. You can fill them in. We saw this a little bit with Titan Bar, where just trying to figure out what it was doing with the reputation messages in chat took way longer than you would have thought, because we had to kind of reverse engineer what was going on based on what the pattern matching should be doing, and then be like, okay. It would have been way easier if there had been some comments of, this is what we think is happening. Okay, so we can see that our plugin knows when we're applying this. That means our plugin could say to a UI component, hey, you have another Soliloquy of Spirit for this player. Okay, let's see what we can do about that. All right. Thank you very much, Feldspot. I think I am satisfied that my plugin can identify both me and other players. So if you're going to go back to farming, I totally get it. Okay, so this, call some function x. This is what we need to figure out. What are we going to do with this information now that we know that that's gone out? Okay, so chat logger is all done. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and remove that output for now. Maybe I will regret that later. And then we have initiated the chat logger. Excellent. What else? We need some sort of a UI. Now, I really like the UI for mini raid. Let me go ahead and pull that up. I think I will take inspiration, but I'm not going to try to copy it exactly. So if we use a Lotro plugin compendium, we can come in and add mini raid. Thank you, Darf, for creating such a cool thing. And remember to use the oh, I just realized that was not with my desktop display. So yes, Lotro plugin compendium. Very useful. I highly recommend it. You can add new plugins, which is what I just did. So click the green arrow, make sure that you refresh, and then you can load that plugin. So I really like the aesthetics and the sort of streamlined presentation of information here. I think it's overkill for just presenting 0, 1, 2, or 3 Soliloquy of Spirits and 0 or 1 inner strengths. Is that what it's called? Let me put it on myself again. Inner strength, yes. Also, I'm not convinced I need 3 symbols, although I do like them. Maybe I just need a little count, like ×1, ×2, ×3. But I do like the idea of individual timeouts for each one, just like if I go ahead and activate a couple of anthems here. So there's one anthem. And to give it a little time before I start the next anthem, go ahead and start this up here. And so we can see that this anthem is almost a quarter through its duration. This anthem is just getting started. And so that's the mental image I have of building on this view of ballads and anthems and providing another window with targets and their 0, 1, 2, or 3 soliloquies and 1 inner strength. I guess I could come closer. Just occurred to me, for testing purposes, I could get closer to the farm where she is working. Then she wouldn't have to run so far. Do like the prancing pony from a height. Okay. So here's a nice view of the entranceway. Okay, so that's the general thought process I have on this. Is mini raid presents a really nice consolidated piece of information. Maybe we can do something with that idea. But in the meantime, we have MinstrelBuffs. MinstrelBuffs is still doing all this logging stuff, I think I'm going to go ahead and not worry about the effects, but I do think I want to know about who's in the fellowship. Because the other thing about mini-raid is as people join or leave the fellowship, it automatically adjusts because it's meant to be a replacement for the standard view of your fellowship. And I think I would like a similar view for some sort of a box that tracks who's adding and removing from the fellowship. So I'm going to keep this around as inspiration. I'm not going to bother deleting that yet. So a thing that we might need is the ability to track who's in your party at any given time. But I think right now I'm just going to focus on me because I am always in my fellowship. So that'll be a fine starting point. Okay, so we should probably have a function create main window. No, create Soliloquy window. And we need to remember to call it. Otherwise, it just defined, it's never run. Okay, so what are we doing in here? What are we doing with our life? We can use one of two top-level controls. We can use a window or a Lotro window. The Lotro window includes all this nice border with a close button and the title bar, and that's all lovely. It seems like overkill for what we want. This, alternatively, is its own little window with its own background, and it just places stuff in these little boxes, so it looks very nice. I think I'll do somewhere in between this and nothing. So we need to create a window. And we would like it to stick around. So I don't want to call this a local. So Soliloquy window equals turbine dot, and when in doubt, come back to the documentation. And we can scroll all the way down to turbine.ui, and we're going to be making a window. Great. So turbine.ui.window. Because it's a window, we don't have a parent that we need to set, but we should set some stuff. The first thing I want to set is a background color, so I can see the thing. And this is just going to be a turbine.ui.color. We'll just call it dark red. Something we can see. Maybe dark blue will be a little less harsh. Awesome. Then we also need to go ahead and set the width. Well, really set size. Let's go ahead and just make that like a 200 by 200 square. And then we also need to set position. Now I want it to be kind of in the middle of my screen so it's visible regardless of what other windows are around. So I'm going to say, let's call it 500 and 100. Okay, so we're creating a window. Let's just see that in action. Unload, reload. Well, I don't see it. So let me come in and double check my basic reminder of how does something else do it. Okay. Do I have to set visible? Well, setting visible might help. I suppose it couldn't hurt. Hey, there we go. For some reason, I was forgetting about setting visible. That's a little bit too far left. Great. Bump it over a little bit more. Awesome, nicely centered. Baz reminds me that a Lotro window is always starts out not visible by default. Looks like that is inherited behavior from window. So, actually, let's see, set visible is actually inherited from control. Let's go take a look at that. Add the members, visible. Set visible. Looks like they don't tell us what the default value is. Okay, well, that's cool. Yeah, I was going to say, a control being visible by default makes sense. So it's quite possible a window just overloads that. SoftSnake asks, is there a reason why in Plugin Manager there's an unload all, but not an unload specific? Yes, there is a reason. The reason has to do with the memory model used for plugins, and plugins are divided into apartments. So you can have multiple plugins occupying the same apartment, and any plugin that's not in a special apartment is in the main general apartment. So if you do a /plugin space list, sorry, slash plugins space list, you'll see an output. And it'll list the plugins that are installed and which ones are loaded. And if a plugin has a custom apartment, for instance, let me go ahead and add in another plugin that I'm quite fond of, which is Reminders by Thurlore. Great plugin, especially if you're managing multiple characters or even multiple servers. So that's installed. We're going to go ahead and hit refresh and load reminders. When it first comes up, it doesn't know what server we're on. That's very sad. You can hit detect, or you can just select the box. Okay, so if I go ahead and redo the command /plugins space list, then we can see that MinstrelBuff is in the general apartment, Mini Raid is in the Mini Raid apartment, and Reminders is in the Reminders apartment. So, due to the nature of how the plugins work, when you load a plugin, it's loaded into an apartment. If you load another one and it goes into that same apartment, now they are both there. And Lotro can't really pick apart one plugin from another when it's loaded like that. But what you can do is you can unload an entire apartment. Just tear the whole thing down. So any plugin that has this text in parentheses after the name when it's loaded, that is something that can be unloaded. Not using the user interface, but if you type /plugins space unload space that text, so reminders, for example, then it unloads. Or I could do /plugins space unload space mini raid. Capitalization does not matter. And then it will unload. So /plugins space unload period is unloading everything. But if you add a name, there we go. If you just do /plugins, it will remind you. It will say the usage is plugins, and you can either load a plugin name or you can unload. And if you do, they call it a script state, but it's often called an apartment. And you can also do list or refresh or manager if you want to open up the UI. So it depends on the plugin, and there are downsides to being in your own apartment. My understanding is that each apartment gets its own copy of some global data, like the turbine libraries and other things. And so every plugin that you have that is in its own apartment increases the memory footprint overall for Lotro. And so if you have reasons to be in an apartment, you should do so. For instance, if you do need to be reloaded, then you need to be in your own apartment. Mini Raid, for example, or Titan Bar is another example that has that reload option. Let me go ahead and just add Titan Bar in here. Titan Bar, cool. Let's go ahead and add you in. Awesome. And now if we refresh, we get Titan Bar. And one of the things you can do with Titan Bar is there is a reload or there's an unload. Let's unload it. Awesome. And let's go ahead and reload. Great. That's a thing you cannot do unless you have an apartment for your plugin, because it relies on basically a trick, which is to unload a plugin apartment from Lua instead of from typing in the game. So a plugin can load or unload another, you can load another plugin, you can unload a plugin apartment. So SoftSnake, I hope that gave you an answer to your question. Basically, it's hard to untangle multiple things in the same apartment, but you can tear down the whole apartment. I burned your mind. Well, I hope that's said in a good way. But that being said, yeah, some plugins you can unload. Just do a /plugins space list, and you'll see which ones you can just unload manually versus which ones you have to do the unload all. Sometimes after I've done an unload all, it's just easier for me to log out and log back in because I sometimes have a dozen different plugins running, and it's just a fast way to fix it. Okay, so we have made a Lotro window object, and we have colored it blue, and we've stuck it in the middle of the screen. Great. So, what can we do with that? Let's go ahead and just have a label. So, temp label equals turbine dot UI dot label. Now, remember, if you have an object, you have to parent it. A UI object specifically. So we're going to set that parent. And we're just going to set the text to 0. So if we go ahead and load, we're going to see that 0 there. Great. And we can add a function. Function add Soliloquy. And that's going to be, that's going to take a player name because eventually we are going to care which player got this. But for now, I would say temp label set text to temp label get text +1, just for something to do. And we're going to go ahead and call add soliloquy from the chat logger. Now we do need to go ahead and pop this open, and we're going to go ahead and call add soliloquy. Great. Let's give that a try. Unload, reload, and now each time I do Soliloquy of the Spirit, I get that number increasing by 1. Okay, cool. So we've linked up spotting something in chat to changing the UI. Aha! This is why I didn't see it before. So I was worried about this. And what I'm seeing is that you can critically succeed on Soliloquy of the Spirit. I'm not sure how that differs from the heal effect critically proccing, but that's okay. So this right here, critical benefit, we can go ahead and swallow that up with a dot star in our regular expression, or we could just only look after benefit with Soliloquy of Spirit. We don't care if it was a critical one or not. Not really. If we wanted to track that, we could do another capture group, but I don't. In fact, I don't even need that final period. Maybe I do. I don't want to include that in the name. Okay, so let's go ahead and we've got that extra text that justifies why we made that change. Excellent. Unload, reload, and now whether or not it critically succeeds, we should see that number increase. Great. Now, ideally, that number should only go up to 3, and we need to start thinking about timers. But that's a good start. Oh, guess I'm done with that plugin compendium. Okay, so the next step is it would be really nice to have the the icon for Soliloquy of Spirit. Now, it is possible to get the internal ID for each thing in the game. And we're having an effect. I'm wondering if effect can give us its ID, or its image ID. Get icon, yes, awesome. So, you know how I deleted that text? I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and local effects equals leader, get effects. Great. For I equals j up to effects, get count, do, okay, local effect equals effects get, and then we're going to do a conditional here. If effect get name equals this thing, Soliloquy of Spirit, then, and only then do I want to know about it. And for that, we really want to know Soliloquy of Spirit icon. Great. And for that, it's effect get icon. Now, what does get icon return? It gets a number. Awesome. I love numbers. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a Soliloquy of Spirit, unload, and then reload. And then we get an error. Awesome. For initial, oh right, j equals 1. That happens. Index out of range. Because it's a j. Great. Okay, so we can see the Soliloquy of Spirit icon number is this thing. Now, I highly recommend, if you're going to deal with internal IDs like this, you're going to want to deal with it like a hex number, because it is. So the actual ID we're going to store off is this instead. Now, we can go ahead and store that wherever, but right now, we're going to go ahead and put it at the top. So, Soliloquy of Spirit icon equals, and we precede that hex with a 0x that tells Lua that it's a hex number, not just a weird string that it doesn't understand. And we can do a little bit of a sanity check. We can come in and look at something else's icons. So, for instance, we can see, let's see, image. Wow, it looks like I didn't save it off there. Let me go into a different plugin. And it's not going to be in globals, it's going to be in images. So we can see we have some other images here, and all of these internal IDs start with 4100. Well, not all of them, 41 something. So if we come look at ours, we can see that it starts with 410 something. Okay, that's a really good sign that we're in the right place. Paul in chat says, hi, is it possible to reset the epic quest 1-2 book 1? I'm stuck that can't progress. Okay, well, when I have questions about the epic, I do tend to go to the Lotro wiki. Now, sometimes it's a little hard to find the epic quest line in here because there's so many things in game that have the word epic in them. But if you find epic quests or epic quest, then it has a list of things. Now you say this is volume 2, book 1. Presumably that is the Mines of Moria. If so, what part are you stuck on, if I've got the right one? Let's see. Chapter 11, Forged a Canoe. Great. So, a thing I will do, Paul, is when I'm really struggling on a quest, I come to the wiki. It here should match the text that you see in here. And it has your objectives. Bring the weapon to the Forge Master, talk to a person. So you're going to Thorin's Hall, or you're going to Rivendell. You're going to talk to someone back at the just outside the Hullun Gate. So you'll want to do those things. But when I really struggle, there's oftentimes hidden in the walkthrough and notes some stuff here. So I guess sometimes you can actually get stuck, but sometimes it's just a question of knowing how to proceed on the quest. So if you are in a place where you feel like you can't proceed, double check what the quest, if you have it in your tracker, what does it say the next thing you're supposed to do is? So for instance, oh hey, Eldoleth is saying that that might be causing some problems because of the new legendary item revamp. Awesome. Eldoleth, thank you so much for checking in on that. Oh, and hello, Agent Brigman. Thank you so much for that cooking stream. That was amazing. Okay, cool. I'm going to leave that in Eldoleth's capable hands, but in the future, if it's not an actual technical glitch in the game, sometimes I just need to look at what other people have said about the quest to kind of figure, oh, I'm supposed to go do this thing over here. Cool. Thank you for the question. Okay, so we have an icon ID for the Soliloquy of Spirit. Well, welcome to Plugging Along, a Lotro stream all about Lotro plugins. So my envision is to use this icon to put it into the UI somehow. Now, I don't have a good sense of what that's going to look like yet, but we do have, we have a turbine.ui where we can get a graphic. Turbine.ui.graphic. Awesome. Or we can just use the ID itself. Very cool. I wonder if you can cache that off. Would that even make sense? Okay, so we have add soliloquy. We can also go ahead and put the icon out there just for fun. Oh, well, thank you for watching from Brazil. You are welcome, Paul. Okay, so we have need of an icon. How do I want to put that in here? Well, in a different program, and again, whenever I'm stuck on a plugin, I'll think back, how does this work in a different plugin? Let's try that. Excellent. We just need a control. We're going to set the background. That sounds great. Let's do that. So we're going to go ahead and do icon control equals turbine.ui.control. Now remember, the first thing you want to do so that you see the thing is to parent it. So we're going to parent that in the Soliloquy window. We're actually going to go ahead and local icon num equals temp label get text. Awesome. And we're going to coerce that to number as a number because I want to play silly shenanigans with that. Okay, icon control, set size. We're going to set that to be 32 by 32 because that's what most in-game icons are. And that's why rescaling the UI oftentimes is a little unsatisfying because you're scaling up a 32 by 32 image and it gets kind of pixelated. Okay, and then icon control set position. Here's where we're going to get a little silly. It's going to be icon num times 5, let's say, and icon num times 5. Okay, and finally, the icon control set background. And we want to go ahead and just set that to the icon. So let's give that a play. Right now, I'm just sort of convincing myself that I have all the pieces to do what I want to do. So, awesome, we've got an icon. We've got another one. And this is just going to keep on adding those icons. So obviously, we would want to stop at 3 of these, one for each that you can have stacked on you. But this tells us that we have the right icon and that we can draw them where we want them to be. Neat. Okay, so this is, of course, not the final code. But I'm going to leave it right here just as something to think about. That blue is starting to, that's starting to be a little much. Let's go ahead and change that to, I don't know, dark something. Darker blue? maybe I'll just leave it right now. Oh, cool. Where Willow? Oh, okay, cool. Rule says that's precisely the one that folks can't progress on because of the update. Coderban says folks stuck there need to submit a help ticket through the website, not in-game. The in-game one's got a little issue. And that's what Paul was talking about. Fantastic. Tommy says, can you tell me how you change the font size in chat for Lotro? Yes, I can. Thank you for asking. So in your options, which you can get to a couple of different ways, if you hit escape, you get the system menu, go to options. If you use the the little tick down here next to Gandalf, you can also just go straight to the options. And I do that so often I forget about the other one. So in options, under chat, you can customize the look and feel of each of your channels. And so, unfortunately, this is the limit of options. So 23, 22, 20, 18, 16, and 14 in any of these colors. This is not every color, of course, but it's enough. And as Eldela says, you can always right-click and go to change text colors. It'll boot you right here as a shortcut. I do this for my user chats, actually. Each of my user chats has a kind of a distinct color, and it really catches the eye. It doesn't blend in as much. So when one of the user chat channels, someone says something, I'm like, oh, that's a message I care about because it's not just an anonymous message. Okay, so my vision is to have a row that understands that it can have 0, 1, 2, or 3 of these soliloquies, and that each one of those soliloquies has a timer that is counting down. So when that timer hits 0, it goes away. Now, what I'm modeling this off of is the MinstrelBuff, where we have space for each of the anthems. And as the timers tick down, excuse me, we get closer and closer to 0. When it hits 0, it disappears. MinstrelBuffs is using the effect list on the player, though. And so when the effect list changes on the player, we rescan it, we repopulate the icons down here. And so we get that clearing effect for free. So that's something I need to think about is the row needs to know when to get rid of one of those icons. That's not too bad. The icon itself can tell the row, hey, get rid of me. So what I'm envisioning, and I might just open up MS Paint here just to give myself a little diagram. And I do recommend this. If you're doing UI work, go ahead and sketch it out somewhere. It can be on a piece of paper. It can be in MS Paint. But what I have in mind is a player name in some sort of, let's go ahead and assume we're going to have a dark color as the background. And so I would have a player name. So I will have Aphodil. And then, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and steal this icon. Okay, so I'm going to use the snipping tool and do a rectangular snip. Unfortunately, it freezes the screen, so you can't actually see me doing it. And for cleanliness, I'm just going to go ahead and crop that. Great. That will be useful for my little mock-up here. Did I make it too small? I probably did. That's okay. Oh no, it's not wide enough. All right, problem solved. Okay, so what I had in mind was Aphodil would have one, wow, it is hard to grab one of these. So 2, I might have someone else in my party. So let's say, oh, who do we have? Okay, Feldspot might have one of these. And Wymir might have, and I'm being intentionally not very precise with this. In fact, Wymir might have 0. That's very sad. And then I would want a timer bar underneath showing, no, stay, showing how much time is left on them. Tommy says, okay, great, thanks. Is there an option that will also affect options tab and the pop-up description on your skills? I'm running in 3880 times 2160 and the text for everything is very, very small. This is a known problem. Standing Stone Games knows that a lot of people are looking at having higher resolution screens like your 2K screen, and they are aware, but they do not have a short-term solution for that. A lot of the assets in the game, like these icons down here, are 32 by 32 icons and they don't scale very well. Also, fonts in general are hard, and making a system that scales from very small screens that they support to the very large is going to take some of their technical effort that they have not, to our knowledge, spent yet. So yeah, that I don't have a good solution for you. Like, a solution is to dial down your resolution before launching the game and just play it in 1K instead of 2K. But I know that's not a very pleasant solution, right? Like, you bought that monitor because it's so pretty to look at. But that is a thing, because that will use your operating system to scale up the text in a way that Lotro is not doing, and it'll still look a little pixelated. But if you're sitting far enough back, I imagine it'd be fine. But no, quest text is a place where you can change things. There's a quest size button at the bottom of the window here where you can go ahead and make that bigger. But the hover over text where you have these tooltips, that is, of course, a separate system. So there's little places where you can fix it, but not everywhere. Yeah, cool. Good luck with that. Now, the good news is a lot of plugin developers, like myself, do pay attention to resolution size changes on your screen. So if you change your resolution size, hopefully most of your plugins will recognize that and not like position stuff way off of screen. But that can happen. That can. Because as a plugin writer, you have to remember to do that for every element. You have to be like, is this off screen? Let's put it back on when you're first loading the plugin. So it's a thing that we can forget about. Okay, so, oops, I want to make that a little bit less big. The other thing I was thinking of was, let's see, when you do Soliloquy, you also get inner strength. So I want to go ahead and snip that as well, that little image there. And we're going to go ahead and should really save these somewhere. That's okay. This is really just for the mockup. Okay, so the other thing I want is in my mockup, if it has been fairly recent, in fact, if there's, no, it can go away. I was going to say it's always there, but it's not. It has a 30-second instead of 45-second for the inner strength. So we're going to pretend like this is a smaller bar and the inner strength has already expired. And that's a shame because inner strength is great. It gives you that plus 3% tactical and physical mitigation. Or I should, oh. You can have up to tier 3. Oh, there should be some way to show. Should there? Could you get into a position where you have tier 1? Surely you must be able to, right? All right, discovery time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I did it too soon. So, yeah, a question I have is, if you fire this off rapid fire, and then inner strength drops off after 30 seconds, and you bring it back, is it based on how many you have active when it opens, or is it one bigger than the version that was on at the time? These are little edge cases that matter when you're doing a plugin development that I just have never thought about this question before. It's probably not on the wiki, and it's just one of those edge cases where you're like, oh, that suddenly matters to me. I guess I'll figure out how it works. Okay, so that dropped off, and we're back. Okay, so you can have 3 Soliloquy of Spirits and only tier 1 of inner strength. That feels like information, but how would that work? Would I want to see, like, I could stack up 3 of them to show like times 3? That feels kind of clunky. I could do a number on top of it, so we could have like a little, times 2 or something. Oh, that's too big. Dial that back. Okay, that's gonna look terrible. Okay, we'll just do a little mock-up then. Times 2. Okay, what if it was just an extension of what we'd already seen for the health bars? So what if there was just... All right, it is hard to work with this few number of pixels, I gotta tell you. Okay, so what if instead we had like 3 little cutouts and it was just 0, 1, 2, or 3 of those? Would that work? Because it's time. Oh, but I want to track its time. Oh, that's frustrating. So I want to track how much time it has left, but I also want to track if it's tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. I guess I could start with that kind of a thing, although that's really ugly because this is just a mock-up. Like, if I were looking at this, which would I rather see to show me that I've got 3 of these? is, right? I don't know. I'll leave that for the crowd to throw their opinions in while I finish the mock-up here. There we go. Well, the good news is we're not anywhere close enough for that to matter, but that is a UI question to be solved. I don't think the overlapping one really works. Like it's would take too many mental thought processes to be like, is that 2 or 3? So I don't like that. The little dots thing I could get behind. It's nice and streamlined, and it's going to be the same looking UI, or maybe they show up on top of it or something. But what would that look like? So take that, put it down here, but then these dots are actually up there instead. Maybe that would be okay? I could see that. I mean, obviously that's not a legal position because Dwemer doesn't have any of these in the first place, but Soliloquy of Spirits, 1, 2, 3 with their own individual timers, inner strength with a timer and a rank of 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so that's the kind of UI that I'm looking for, that I want to be able to build. So that has a sense of, let me just highlight here. That is the wrong color. So up here is one row, and then below that is a row. So just internally, I would want to implement each of those as its own little area. Okay, so there's a box. And so each box should understand the idea of add a soliloquy, which if you don't have 3, adds 1 to the end. And if you have access to inner strength, resets that timer, bumps it up to the next level. Or maybe we'll even detect it in, we could find in the effects list, we don't need that. Oh, thank you, Werewolf. You like the 3 blips idea. Maybe make them circular and or a different color. Yeah, color's really easy to do for that. Circular, harder, because what we're really doing is just taking a rectangular control and chopping it into pieces or whatever. Another thought I had was, kind of drawing little rectangles around the edge. So you should fill. Okay, so sorry. So like a little one over here and one over here and one up here. Maybe like kind of fill them in, or red, green, blue or something. I think the blips are the easiest to just see and spot without having to really think about it. Anyhow, so we know that inner strength can expire, and if we need to, we can go to that effects list. But if we just start a 30-second timer, and if we see a Soliloquy of Spirit happen before that timer, we can just reset it and bump up the number to 2 to 3. And so this box needs to understand that concept. So we need to define a box, and then we can just have, well, you know what? I say the box doesn't include the name, but why shouldn't the box include the name? We could just have the box includes all of this. And we just have one box after another. And they're all basically the same size. And the box draws a name, and then it draws 0 to 3 soliloquies and 1 inner spirit. That could work. And then you just layer these boxes one after the next for each person in your fellowship. And then if we get far enough, we could even do it for each person in your raid. or at least have an option to add raid as well. These boxes being their own thing also means we can take after mini raid, which has the ability to reorder these things. We saw earlier that maybe, just maybe, we can get the fellowship in order, but I have no reason to believe that's a guarantee. That's just a maybe. So mini raid offers the option, if you shift click, you can reorder these boxes however you please. I like to do it so that they are laid out in the same way as the fellowship tab, because I do have the fellowship visuals up, so I can just go F3 and select the third one, or F2, F1. So I can use those shortcut keys, or I can just click on these. All my fellowship members are out of range. They're off doing productive things. Okay, so I think that's what I need. I need a window. I need to know how big each of these controls is, and I need to know how many of them I have. But then, if I just know that control 1 is Affidel, control 2 is Feldspot, I could just say, okay, you should increment. Or if each control knows its own name, I could just tell each of them, hey, Affidel just got +1, and they can sort out which one needs it. I could see doing either way. I don't like the idea of calling every one of them in case you have a full rate of 24. You're telling 24 controls something that only one of them cares about, but it's a solution. It's a path forward. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, I'm going to save it in my working directory, so Lord of the Rings Online, plugins, MinstrelBuffs, and I'm going to call it proposed Soliloquy tracker window design. I'm going to save that there because I don't think there's too much time to implement this today. But I think next week I'd like to start, if I don't do it in between because I really want this, I'm going to start with trying to make a row just for my own player character and see if I can pop 1, 2, or 3 of these in here, see if the fourth one pushes one off, and then if that starts working, also look at showing what tier inner strength we have going. That is a possibility. I could get into that. Also, effect list, I'm just wondering if this row saved off the effect list of the player, of the party, then the Affidil row could get effects added, effects removed, effects cleared. The Affidil row could know when an effect was added or removed or cleared, and have or look at the list and have a very clear idea of what rank we're on, and then you won't have timing issues where, oh, we thought we renewed it, but the server thought it ended, and now we're on tier 1 instead of tier 3. And if each row takes care of its own handling of this, then that wouldn't be too bad. It's not like each row would have to look at every character. So I like that idea. I'm going to make some notes here. Okay, to do. Each row can use effect list, effect added, effect removed, effect cleared for its player. Okay, each row. Before that, each row, and if that's the case, maybe we won't do any chat monitoring at all. Maybe we'll just use the effect list. Each row should display 0, 1, or 2, 2, or 3. Soliloquy of Spirit, of course. Spirit and 0 or 1 inner strength of rank 1 2, or 3. Okay. Well, that's a lot. But I think if we can go ahead and get a row that can either listen to chat or look at the effect list and display these, and when you add one of... Oh, that's... Okay. Because the effects know when they were started, you can order the effects, and as long as we have a timer underneath them that starts when we see the effect start, then we don't care about that. We'll just order them by time. That'll be fine. We don't... we do care about the expiration for this. There's some moving parts. Then Nuku says in Francois, yes, so this plugin would work for French or German or Russian as long as the string here that we're using to look in chat, or the names of the abilities if we're looking at the effect list, as long as we have that for each. So for instance, MinstrelBuffs has a resource, oh, I knew this, theme. No. Sorry, just a moment. Okay, I have lost it. So I'm going to do a search. Okay, add folder. This is MinstrelBuff. Oh, I'm in the wrong place, of course. Documents, Rings, plugins, MinstrelBuffs. And we're going to go ahead and do a recursive search. And where is... Okay. Minstrel effects, of course, my mistake. So there are resource files here. So Minstrel effects has valid ballad effects English, ballad damage bonus, ballad power bonus, etc. But it also has a section in here for German, and it also has a section in here for French. And so based on your client language, then the plugin can look for these specific names of skills based off of whether it's English, French, or German. And then the rest of the plugin can just say, oh, the thing happened. And so in this case, we know that if we see, I won't try to pronounce it. My knowledge of French vowels is very bad. But if we see this, then we would know that that is a valid anthem effect, and we should treat it like an anthem and go. So absolutely, MinstrelBuffs can work in German or French, and I would want this addition to it also to work in French and German and Russian if someone wants to supply those strings. All right, let me clear out a couple of these windows that have piled up here. So that's my idea for next time is, and in fact, we should go ahead and write that down. Make sure to localize the chat text or skill names, effect names. Excellent. Always want to make sure we do that. Thank you very much. All right, so what else? What else were we thinking about for this? This is really it. That was sort of my goal, was get some basic idea of the technology we can use, either chat logs or effect lists for the party, and get a sense of what the UI might look like. And I think right now I am liking the bottom version here of the inner strength so that the timer and the tier don't collide with each other. I don't think I like the overlapping thing at all. And putting the timer and the tier right next to each other, I think that would be a little bit too much, but I'll have to see it in action. The good news is we can move that stuff around pretty easily. And then The other UI here, I'm going to rip off almost completely from the UI that MinstrelBuff already presents for anthems. Where the anthems are ticking down here, this would just be 1 or 2 or 3 Soliloquy of Spirits with their timer ticking down. Okay, well, I think this is probably a good breaking point. And then next week we can start with the actual crafting of the UI based on this rough diagram. And go from there. So we'll replace this blue background with just a single row, and that row will understand which player it's based off of. So it'll have the name, it'll have the effects list, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, I think that's a lot of progress, or at least a lot of potential progress there. Obviously, this is going to take more than one stream to put this together, but when we're done, my hope is to have at least a fellowship-capable tracker, if not for a whole raid, where you can tell how many Soliloquy of Spirits that you have put on, or perhaps that are put on. That would be nice to take into account other minstrels also doing the Soliloquy of Spirit. I assume 2 minstrels cannot stack 6 Soliloquy of Spirits on one target. So that might be where the effects list shines, because if we can see the effects from other players, that'll just knock that into first place. So let me make that note. This should let us see Soliloquies from other players. Okay. Let me go and indent that. Neat. Oh, well, I just realized. I was typing that, but it wasn't even visible. So I'm going to start in next week implementing this, and we will go from there. Awesome. All right. Well, if there's any last minute chats, comments, or questions, throw them in. And while I get a drink of water. But we are coming up on the hour here, so I think this is a great place to stop. Okay, I'm not seeing anything coming into chat, although I do know that sometimes what I say is a little delayed when it gets to you. When I'm watching streams, it seems like I'm about 10 seconds behind live, just from network latency, and I've got it set on high latency mode and that sort of thing. And I know some people aren't the fastest of typers, but if we did not get a chance to answer a question that you have right now, bring it back next week or pop in on one of the other streamers and see if they can help you out. I am not the only streamer who knows anything about plugins. I'm just the one who's obsessed with them. Well, one of the ones who's obsessed with them anyway. Okay. Well, that's all we're going to cover for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Lotro plugins. I do hope to see you here next week. And until then, keep plugging along. Okay, bye-bye now.